Okay, let's make a start. Okay, so anyone who's just joined in, good afternoon, and welcome to our Clik webinar. Today we hope to give you more of an insight on Clik Remote. My name is Jamie and I'm the Trainer and Content Executive here at Clik. And today we are going to be covering the following. So exactly what Clik Remote is, who it's for, and how it can help the job management process. We will be introducing each of the basic modules in the Clik Remote Manager login and how to use them. And we will be running through the typical processes a manager will address when fulfilling daily tasks, such as creating jobs. You have the chance to ask any questions during the webinar. Please enter any questions you have as we go, and we'll go through as many as we can in the second part of the presentation. So, what is Clik Remote? Clik Remote is a simple web-based application which will allow you and your workforce to access your live Clik service data from any location with any device, albeit you have an internet connection. It is one intuitive, easy-to-use product for your staff and customers. Clik Remote will give everyone the information they need when they need it, all wrapped up in their own personalized dashboard. It can help you speed up the job management process and save time by implementing digital processes, reduce printing costs, save money on travel, and prevent unnecessary expenditure due to errors. Improve communications and enable your customers, engineers, and workforce to see what is going on with their jobs. And boost overall workforce morale. Well-organized jobs means your team is on the same page, and an efficient team is a happy team. Clik Remote offers 4 different types of logins. We have the Clik Remote Manager. Take control and oversee your business remotely, no matter where you are. Clik Remote Engineer. Your team on site will be able to see their jobs and upcoming work when they need it. Clik Remote Customer. Give your customers access to all the job and reporting information they need. And Clik Remote Sales. Provide your sales team with CRM and quoting functionality on the go. Okay, so this slide gives you a bit more detail of which modules are available in each login. This can also be accessed on our support page. Today we're going to cover the Service Manager login, as we mentioned previously, which you can see has the highest level of access. The Service Manager login allows you to create and complete jobs, view customer communication, handle accounting, schedule your engineers, and is accessible on any device. Today we're going to be focusing on the following: the dashboard, the CRM, jobs, the engineer schedule, diary, sales and accounting, and reports. So let's just have a little look at Clik Remote in action. Okay, so when you initially log into Clik Remote, you'll be presented with your customized dashboard. As you can see, there's a number of widgets which vary across lots of different modules. So these here are widgets, which I'm hovering my mouse over now. If we just take one of these as an example, okay, so let's have a little look at unassigned jobs. So the 441 is a count of unassigned jobs. If we click on this particular widget, it will pull through the jobs that meet that criteria. So that's the jobs that don't have an engineer scheduled to them. So we can then view specific job details, and we can actually filter this further using the filter button, and we can also customize what data we see on the grid using the customize tool. So that will allow us access to add additional columns or hide particular columns there. So if we go back to our dashboard, we can also look at some information like unpaid invoices. So if we're looking at unpaid invoices, we might want to know the unpaid invoice value or the total number of unpaid invoices. So again, this 129 are invoices that are marked as unpaid. So if I click on that, again, as we did for the unassigned jobs, this is going to show you all invoices which meet that criteria. Going back to the dashboard. So you also have the ability to search any module using the search field, which is located at the very top of the page. So it's kind of grayed out a little bit. So up top here, as you can see, it's now lit up. So this search function works inclusively. So what you can do is you can pop in a value in the right field, and it will search through the particular module you choose, and it will pull data from lots of different fields. So using equipment as an example, so as you can see, we've got all our different types of modules. I'm going to use equipment as an example, and in the search field, I'm just going to type air. Excuse my accent. And as you can see, it's searched the equipment module by description, make, model, serial number, reference number, and plant location. So it's going to pull through any of those pieces of equipment which feature air in any of those fields. So you can see here we've got air conditioning units, and then we've also got one where it has in the reference downstairs. So it works inclusively. It's not necessarily just the start of that word. So what we're going to look at next is the CRM. So if we choose on the left-hand side the CRM. So as I mentioned previously, this is a live link to your Clik service database, and so will show you all of your live client list. You have the ability to refine your results using the search filter, which is here. You can also use the company type drop-down. So at the moment it's set to customer, but we could have it set to all. So that would then also show customers, suppliers, and other, or we can specify it so it just shows the suppliers or other. Of your results, you can order these by any of your column headings. As I mentioned before, you can customize your column headings, again, by going to customize, and you can show additional data on your grid. If I wanted to show our companies by alphabetical order by company name, if I just click on company, it's going to reorder our companies on that grid. So I'm just going to open a company record now. What you can also see as well, it's displaying 10 results. So all the grids across Clik Remote, it will have you can specify the amount of entries it's going to show at once. You can vary this though, so you can adjust this to suit your needs. So I'm just going to click on a record now. So once you've opened a company record, you've got access to the main details as you do in Clik Service. If I click on the Activity tab, this will give you the capability to view and create jobs, quotes, invoices, sales orders, service incidents, if they're a supplier, then purchase orders, and sales inquiries. It does also give you the access to view contracts and contract visits, but that is read only. So you can also view your communications. So click on the communications tab, will show you all your correspondence you've had with that particular customer or company. And it allows you to add new ones in the form of a call or a callback using the buttons to the top right. Finally, you can view, edit, and add company details in the form of contacts, sites and equipment, and documents. Okay, so we're just going to wrap that up on the CRM and head over to jobs, which is displayed underneath work. So clicking on jobs, you have full access to your jobs, and you can filter your list to display specific types of jobs. So if I click on the filter icon, you can narrow down your job search by date range. So at the moment it's set to this year. So you have these pre-configured options, but you can also specify a date range yourself So if I wanted to just look at maybe from October to the end of the year, I can adjust that to the start of October. I can also search by statuses, which are your pre-configured statuses which you can customize in Clik Service. You have the option to look at ones that are marked as complete or not. So ones that aren't marked as complete will be outstanding ones. Again, you've got your categories. So like statuses, these are your customized ones in Clik Service. Likewise, fault codes. And finally, you can look at ones that have an invoice attached to them or not. So whether they have been invoiced or not. So I can hit close on that. As well as that, you have the option to search by job number using this field. Again, using the customize button, you can customize what data is going to show on your grid. So you can also add the status and fault codes, for example, and then you can just scroll across and you can see those are on there. This data you can then export. So you can see here we've got 39 entries. So let's just adjust that to show 50. And now we have all the jobs that are meet our criteria. So this is just jobs from October to the end of the year. So you might want to export these. So what you can do is you can go to actions and you can go to print. So that will put them onto a PDF. Or if you want to manipulate that data further, you can go to Excel and that will then populate these details onto a spreadsheet. So as well as viewing your existing jobs, you can add new jobs. So you've got the add job function in the top right. So I'm just going to go to add job now. So it's very similar to Clik Service. So first of all, you need to choose your customer. So this again is an inclusive search. So I'm just going to find a customer now. And once you choose your customer, it will then bring up the location address field. So this will then find all sites which are linked to that specific company, and then you can choose the applicable one. So below that, you have the facility to add further job details. So you've got the title, you've got status category fault codes, you've then got the work to be done. So that's the task that you're going to be outlining for the engineer, and then general notes, which might be access requirements on there. In the upgraded Clik Remote, so Clik Remote 6, you do have the option to apply standard faults. So standard faults are created in Clik Service. So this allows you to it's almost like a job template. So you can basically pre-configure some of the options on a job, and then you can apply that standard fault, and it will then pre-populate a lot of your job details. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on the standard fault drop-down, and it's going to find the ones we've created in Clik Service. The benefit of adding the standard faults is it can then also add action lists, user fields, and your service level agreements automatically. So you might, for example, our emergency call out one, I'm going to apply that, and it's populated our status category, fault code, and work to be done. If I hit save, you're also going to see that we have a service level agreement attached to our emergency call out, and that's got a 2-hour response time. So now it's counting down there to make sure we get that done within those 2 hours. So once you've created your job, you're then going to want to schedule it to an engineer. So there's multiple ways of doing that in Clik Remote. So we can do this within the job by going to add and then engineer. So this is very similar to Clik Service when you go to the engineers tab and then you click on the drop down at the top. So this will then list your engineers alphabetically. So you can choose an engineer, and then you can choose your date and your time for that appointment. If I hit cancel, an additional way of adding an engineer to a job, which is new to Clik Remote, is by going to tools and find engineers scheduled in the area. So this is going to bring up on a map all our jobs which are booked in for that day. So you do have the ability to narrow down your search radius. So at the moment it's looking for 50 miles, but we might want to reduce that down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce that down to 5 miles. And I'm just going to scroll in a bit on the map, and that's going to help us find, hopefully, a job in the area, which in turn will allow you to cut down on unnecessary travel time and travel costs. So below, we can see other jobs we've got booked in for the day, and it will then also give the postcode. So what we can do is we can have a look and see which engineers in the area, and then our job in question, which is marked in orange, we can hit add engineer, and then we can choose the engineer who's in that area. Again, reiterating the point, it will allow you to cut down on unnecessary travel time. So if we go back to the job, there's two more ways of scheduling an engineer to a job, and the way we're going to do that is actually through the engineer schedule. So the engineer schedule is going to show you the work you've got booked in for today. So the overview is going to show you unassigned jobs. The reason being is because we've got ticked hide assigned jobs. That's done by default because more than likely, once you've booked your engineer in, you're not going to want a duplicate there, but you do have the option to untick that. So you also have the option to narrow down your engineer schedule by department or by engineer. So if I go to department, you might assign them to a particular region. So if I go to region A, that's going to then only show me engineers in region A. So what I want to do is I want to schedule our job for an engineer who works in that region. So I'm just going to find our job here, which is 5395, the emergency call out. And if I click and then drag down, I can then choose which engineer I want to assign it to. So once I've done that, it disappears from the overview and it's now booked in for our engineer. However, what I can do as well, I can right click delete engineer planning, and it will now reappear in the overview. Finally, what you can do is you can right click on the job and then you can hit find free engineers for the job. This will then show you which engineers are available on that day. All you do is you tick, you selected, and it will book it in for that engineer. Okay, what we're going to have a little look at next is the diary. So that's just underneath engineer schedule, underneath work. So in the diary, you can control which events you see. So you've got this events tab, and at the moment we've ticked to show everything. And to the right of that, you then have the responsible user. So at the moment, it's only going to show me the items which are linked to me as a user. So if I click on this and do all users, it will show me all events for all responsible users. I'm just going to go on a breakdown and show you which items are which, so they're easily identifiable. They are shown very similar to how they are in Clik Service. So for example, we've got in red with the A, we've got absence. With the H, little grey faded out ones are holiday. So you can see there, we've got Bob booked out for the whole week. In the purple, we've got contract visits. In the green, we've got jobs. And in the brown, we've got engineer planning. So the difference between a job and an engineer planning is you might have a job appointment. However, you might have multiple engineer appointments for that job. So you might have multiple engineer planning entries for that job. You might want to hide one or the other. So you can see here we've got 5382 showing twice. That's because we've got the job booked for that day, and then we've also got an engineer booked in for that day. What we can do is we can go to events and then hide job. Then we know we've got the engineer appointment there for 5382 anyway. Going on from there, in orange, we've got service incidents. In the light blue, we've got diary entries. So that might be when you're booking in meetings. And in the dark blue, we've got our callbacks. So what we're going to have a little look at now is sales and accounting. So sales allows you to view, edit, and create sales inquiries, quotes, and sales orders. Through quotes, we have access to active and historical quotes. So if we use the filter icon, you can see we're looking at quotes for this year. What we might want to do is we might want to look at quotes that are accepted so that we can then action them. So using the Clik Remote login, using the customer login, a customer now has the facility to accept a quote which has been sent to them. So that can all be done online by your customer now. Once we have a quote marked as accepted, we can then action this. So what we can do here is we can then go to status and then look at accepted quotes, and then we might just narrow this down to ones from October to the end of the year. So if we take one of these quotes as an example, so now we have the option to action this quote. So we can do this through activity, and we can do that in the form of sales order, a job, an invoice, a purchase order, and you can also then see if it's linked to any sales inquiry. So what we're going to do today is we're actually going to create an invoice, and we can do that by clicking on the invoice tab and then add invoice. So if we do new invoice using default setting, it's going to pull through your default setting from Clik Service. And as you can see below, we've got an invoice created. So if I click on the invoice number, it's going to then bring up the invoice details. The invoice will give us a breakdown of the items. So you can see here in the bottom right. As well as that, you've got the total net, VAT, and total gross as well. So using the Service Manager module, you do have the facility then to send this to the client immediately. So you can do that by going to Actions and then Email. This will then pull through any print templates you've assigned to that specific user. If you've not assigned a print template to the user, then they won't have this facility. So you do have that control. That control is done through Clik Service using the Clik Remote Setup Wizard. So if I went to email an invoice, it's going to look something a bit like this. So if I go to print an invoice, it's going to give us a preview of our PDF. So you can then use your custom print templates, which you have set up in Clik Service already. So your new invoice will then be accessible through accounting and then invoicing credits. So you can see here we've got accounting on the left-hand side. And if we click on invoice and credits, it's going to then give us our invoice list. So just like quotes and jobs before it, this list can be filtered and customized, and then also exported. I'm just going to have a little look now at reports. So talking about customizing your options. So we had a little look at customizing your dashboard widgets. You can actually also access your pre-configured and custom reports from Clik Service. So you can see along the top, you've got your report categories. I'm just going to choose as an example, job sheets. And under job sheets, you can see we've got a drop down. So this will show you any report you've assigned to the user, again, using the Clik Remote Setup Wizard within Clik Service. You can assign reports to a specific user, which are relevant to them. And if you click on the drop down, it will show you all reports which are met within that category. So what we're going to have a little look at is if we have a little look at the number of jobs grouped by category. So this will give you a count of jobs of that specific category. So obviously you can see here we've got callouts and we've got 174 callouts. Again, you can look at your invoices. So if I go on the invoice tab and again use a drop down, we might look at the invoice value by category and then by month. So to reiterate, the customization of users is done through Clik Service, the Clik Remote Setup Wizard. So you can allow privileges, you can show and hide specific columns on that as well, and you can then allow them access to specific reports, widgets, and templates. So as mentioned, you do have the ability to ask questions. I'm just going to have a little look, see if there's any questions at all. Okay, so a question on here is about Clik service, I imagine, and it's the ability to connect quotes to service contracts. In regards to linking quotes to service contracts, that's not a function right now. In terms of your contracts, you would link your contracts to contract visits, and from your contract visits, you would then have jobs linked to them and not quotes. Another question we have is, can this version work with phone systems and in what capacity? Unfortunately, that's not an option. So that one is a no. One more is, can we test this while keeping Clik as it is? So as in Clik, you might mean, I hope you mean Clik Service. So Clik Remote will run in tandem to Clik Service. So it's just a web-based version. So you will have to use Clik Service still because your database will be running on your server. Clik Remote will be set up on your server and hosted by yourselves, and then from there you will basically have access using the Service Manager module to your Clik data. So we've got a question about creating an invoice from multiple job sheets. So that would be an option in Clik Service. So in Clik Service, you have the option for batch job invoicing. So that's the ability to tick multiple jobs and then group them into one invoice. That's not an option in Clik Remote right now. So we have another question about assigning a job into the future, about creating a visit for twice a year for planned maintenance. In regards to your planned maintenance, you would set up a contract first of all. You would then set up a recurrence pattern so that you can specify when your contract visits are going to be created automatically. At that point, you can also have the option of a job sheet being created automatically. Once a job sheet's created, you will then have access to that, to edit that in Clik Remote. So as I mentioned before, contracts and contract visits are read-only in Clik Remote. However, in Clik Remote, you do have full control of jobs. So once the job's created for that contract visit, you can then make any adjustments and then you can schedule that to an engineer. And you do have then access to the engineer schedule. So in regards to invoicing, we've got a question about invoicing and looking at accounts packages. Clik Service is linked directly to your accounts package, and that connection is actually user specific. Clik Remote isn't necessarily linked to the accounts package. So although you have the ability to add your invoices, edit your invoices, the posting to accounts will have to take place from Clik Service. So in regards to products and stock, there's a question about that in regards for Clik Remote. So you don't have the products module available, so you can then do goods inwards, for example, and allocate stock from specific locations. However, what you do have control of is when you add materials, you can choose where you're allocating them from. So you can't necessarily do the goods inwards for the purchase orders and then populate your product locations with that relevant stock. However, when assigning materials to jobs and quotes and invoices, you can choose which location those are going to be drawn from. Likewise, using the engineer's login, you can only give them access to products which exist on their van, so that they can only add materials which they have on their van, which you've actually allocated the stock for. So there's a question about engineer access. So as I mentioned at the very start, Clik Remote's available on any type of device, all being that you have an internet connection. So I went into it briefly about that the site is hosted from your server. So you will have a URL which any of your users can connect to, all being they've got a web connection. You can then create the user. So your engineers will have a engineer's login, and then you can assign the jobs to them from there. So that's accessible on a phone or tablet, so that would be absolutely fine. So another question is, will this be suitable alternative to Clik Jobs application? So the main difference between Clik Jobs and the Clik Remote engineer login is the Clik Jobs is an offline product. So the actual downloading and uploading of data, you will need a connection for. However, once you've got the data, you can then add all job details offline. However, Clik Remote will need a constant connection. And it's not just restricted to jobs. So engineers, which we will go on to in another webinar, but to answer your question, the Clik Remote Engineer login will also have, you can give access to quotes, purchases, the diary, they'll be able to see contract visits too. So there'll be a lot more functionality for your engineer who's going to be using the Clik Remote Engineer login, because it's a live connection to your Clik database. And a follow-up from this question is, will this replace the Clik Jobs app? That's a no. So at the moment, both apps are available and both very popular. It depends on how much functionality you want your engineer to have. So you can, in both apps, you can force engineers to fill out particular details before they complete jobs also. So in the configuration within the Clik Remote setup wizard, for Clik Jobs and for Clik Remote, you have the options to force completion of action list, force your engineer to put in the actual work done, force them to add their labor items to the job, obtain a customer signature, and add a photo. So you can do all those within either Clik Jobs or Clik Remote. The main difference, like I said before, is whether you need an online or an offline application. So in regards to the other logins for Clik Remote, today we're just focusing on the Service Manager login. There are going to be follow-ups for this, which are going to feature the engineer login, the customer login, and the sales login. So that is to come in the future. Our support site does have support articles for all of those as well. But in regards to a webinar, that's to be continued. I'll just see if we have any more questions, but hopefully I've answered most of them. Another question is this webinar available as a download? So yes, this there will be a recording of this webinar which you can access, so you can listen to this back again. So yes, that will be available to download. Is Clik Remote a separate subscription or part of Clik Service? So you do need to purchase the licenses for Clik Remote. You can contact your account manager about that, but you won't get Clik Remote by default. It is a product you would have to purchase on top of Clik Service, which will then run alongside it. So another question is, can we test Clik Remote 6 while still using the older version of Clik Remote? Yes, that can be done. Again, best to inquire with your account manager, but we can set it up as a test, so you're not going live with it fully. Get a couple of engineers on it. Once you're happy with it, then you can roll that out to all engineers. Can the manager complete a job sheet within Clik Remote? Yes. In the Service Manager one, you can complete a job sheet. Again, can the license work on various formats such as iPhone or a laptop or iPad? Yes, it can work on all of those, all being that you have an internet connection. I'll just see if we have many more. So any ones we don't get to, we will also be putting into a blog post, so we will get all your answers, all your questions answered anyway. Okay, so I think that's about most of the questions answered now. Like I said, any ones that we didn't get to, we'll assist you in further demonstrations of the software. So we will be covering the engineer, the sales, and the customer logins in future webinars. And also our sales team will be happy to answer any questions you have. So you can get in touch with your account manager by contacting us on 0117 902 2012. We'll also be sending out a survey following this event, so you can let us know what you want to see in the future. Like I said, the other logins are going to be coming, but you can request anything else. And as I answered in the question before, this will be accompanied by a recording of the webinar, so you can watch this back and you can share this with your team. And finally, that's it. So thanks for watching the first Clik Remote webinar. Look out for future webinars, and you can get in touch for one-to-one training or on-site options again as well by contacting your account manager. Okay, so that's the end of it today. I hope you enjoyed the first webinar and have a great afternoon.